Namaskar. I'm Sree Iyer, your host from PGurus.com. Today, I have with me a very eminent personality who is going to be sharing his views on what is playing out in Afghanistan. My guest today is Dr. Subramanian Swamy. He needs no introduction. He was a former Union Minister of Law, Commerce and Justice and is currently a member of the Rajya Sabha. Dr. Swamy, namaskaram and welcome to PGurus channel.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Thank you, sir. And viewers, before I start Dr. Swamy to weigh in on his observations, I want to just set the context here for those of you, young India, for example, as to what has been happening in Afghanistan for the past several years. We must remember that the Russians invaded Afghanistan in 1979. And in the 80s, the United States funded what is currently the resistance people, the same set of people, probably one generation before. They funded them with arms and equipment, and that was instrumental in driving the Russians out. The one flaw that happened at that point is that US stopped funding Afghanistan as soon as the Russians left, and therefore Afghan didn't have anything to pick up their lives. They didn't have any infrastructure. US should have persisted with funding their colleges, infrastructure, and so on. They didn't do that. And then there was a small vacuum, and then US resumed funding. But when they resumed the funding, they did not give it to Taliban, they gave it to Pakistan and let Pakistan control Afghanistan through what is now called as the Taliban. This was a proxy war, and Taliban started becoming the face of Pakistan. Now, let's fast forward to the present. What happened 2 weeks ago? The last contingent of 2,500 soldiers of United States left in the middle of the night from Bagram Air Base. In fact, they left without even informing the Afghan authorities, who came in the morning after several hours of the place being vacant and looting starting to take place before they could come in and take control. Now, the hard facts that I have gathered from looking at various documents and videos that there were, along with these 2,500 soldiers, about 8,000 contingent from EU also left, and also left was 16,000 consultants who were keeping the Afghan Air Force up and running. They were also removed the same night the last contingent left. And now many of them are sitting in the Middle East and saying, oh, don't worry, Afghan friends, we will help you from here using Zoom. So this is the kind of support that they wanted to give. Now, it is important also to remember that Kabul did not fall. The US just walked away. The real Afghan force is much less than 300,000, with some estimates saying that only 30,000 is the elite force, and they are spread all over the country. So that kind of explains to you, first of all, there was padding in terms of how many people were actually in the force. Second is, during these things, this armed forces became a place to provide employment, not actually, to give it to the people who are fit enough to get employed. So a lot of things went wrong there. But more importantly, days before this actual thing happened, someone who's privy to the letters written by the Secretary of State, Blinken, and other US officials to Ashraf Ghani said that the tone in these letters was that the Afghans were like errant little children. So very, very, lecturing thing, but then the US has really left it in a big mess. Now, let us take a look at what is on the ground on Afghanistan. You have Al-Qaeda and Taliban. So what is the difference, you ask? And could the same people have morphed from Al-Qaeda to Taliban to ISIS? So all these are questions that I'm placing because Dr. Swamy has all the information on his fingertips, and he's going to share what he thinks is happening here. Now, the other important data point that I want to place in front of viewers, I won't take long. The United States hardly lost anyone in the past 18 months. And the UK, that is United Kingdom, even longer, they have not had a fatality. That is, what I'm trying to say is, the last 2-3 years, peace was being kept with all these people in their respective barracks and only helping or supposedly training the Afghan forces to keep the Taliban in check. Yet, the US pulled out abruptly, not even informing the Afghan government about their exit. So what is it that the US is not telling the world? So this is where I would like to stop and invite Dr. Swamy for his initial comments on what he sees. How does he think that foreign forces tried to, I would say in double quotes, help Afghanistan, and have they helped or harmed them? So your thoughts.
Well, first I would say that I've been to Afghanistan once, and that was in January 1991 as Minister of Commerce and, of course, Law and Justice. And at that time, the man who was heading the government there was Najibullah. He was originally set up by the Russians, but then the Russians pulled out and then shut down all the assistance to him, and he managed for some time quite alone. But he was very keen that India should take interest in Afghanistan, and he was sure that if India moved in with troops, Taliban would be no match for it. And he himself was a terrific fighter and a very strong man. But unfortunately, at that time, the Chandrasekhar government had just come in, and we didn't have enough time. And by the time I came back and made a proposal, and we got it through the Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs, our government actually fell. So, and Najibullah was then hanged publicly by the Taliban, who took it over. Brutally, they chopped him up, killed him. It was horrible. They just want to make an example of it. Now, over the years, we have had Afghan fighters who have come to India, and they met me also, and they wanted me to put in a word to the government. And that was the Northern, what is called the Northern Alliance. It's a misnomer because they're actually all over. They're all over Afghanistan, but they are strongest on the northern part, which is called Northern Area or something like that. And they are very well entrenched, and neither the previous Taliban number 1 or Taliban 1 could do anything to them. Now, not these two people. Now, Taliban 2 will be able to do anything. They are there and they are alive, but they need supplies, they need support, and therefore, I think we must know that Taliban taking over this time not alone, after defeating the Russians and the Americans, then packing up the bags and leaving. Now Taliban has got Pakistan on their side. They have got China, and of course China's junior partner is Russia, so Russia is also with them. And this forms a very formidable combination, and this combination would affect India most, because who's Pakistan against? India. Who's China against today? It's India. Russia doesn't count because they are junior partners. They may make any noise, and we may get them confused with the Soviet Union. Soviet Union was a huge area, and it was a communist country. Putin is a dictator. He has no ideology. He was a KGB agent, yes, but he had no ideology, known to have any ideology. And he is a complete dictator. But they were bankrupt. So they relied on Chinese money, and the Chinese are very smart people. They first give you money easily, and then afterwards they put the noose around you. And so the Russians have many, many decisions, and it's now well established. Even people who are a foreign secretary like Vijay Gokhale has written a book about the fact that they are junior partners. And in every other, they'll make a noise, but the fact is, the bottom line is there with China. So we have a very solid group, and Pakistan and China are good friends. They've been good friends for a long, long time. And Pakistan is no match for China, unlike India, which is always a threat that it might be a challenger. So Pakistan, Taliban, and China, that makes a terrible combination for us. And this Taliban is one that has survived in Pakistan. This is the worst, or what I shall say, the biggest paradox that the United States was fighting Taliban in Afghanistan, but United States' favorite, long-term favorite of military alliance was Pakistan. So Pakistan was also helping United States, but it was giving sanctuary to Taliban. So Taliban prospered essentially over the years and survived all the American bombings and all that because they were hiding in Pakistan. So now we have a situation where anti-Indian forces have now become a mighty combination, and we have to deal with this. I mean, can't deal with it the way Mr. Jaishankar or Mr. Dowal do it, like running at a moment's notice, they run to for a conference and they are kept outside the room. And for instance, in Doha, the Americans, the Pakistanis, and the Taliban, they negotiated the whole thing. Nobody else was there, and India was outside. And then after everything was decided and confirmed and announced, then the Indians were brought in to say hello to them. So, I mean, Indians are nowhere in this, absolutely. And they are in a tight spot because we in the United Nations, we may be for 1 month the chairman, but actually in the United Nations, we have given the chairmanship of Taliban as a terrorist organization. I mean, there is a committee which was set up to study the terrorist activities of Taliban. And now we are getting nervous, because our people are all great table Chanakyas who say we will move. Master stroke of Mr. Modi will be that we'll make friends with Taliban. You can't make friends with Taliban. They are a hardcore Islamic organization, and in that there's no room for any other religion. As far as China is concerned, yes, long term China could have problems with Taliban, but Taliban needs money, and China is giving a lot of money, and therefore they have to keep quiet on what's happening in Xinjiang, where the Muslims are getting third degrees. So therefore, the question that you pose is that what should be our posture? Our posture should be to treat Taliban as an enemy and find out who is there, anybody there who can challenge them and support them. So I would say this Amrullah Salah,
Saleh
or Salah, is it SALAH or SALEH?
I think it is SALEH, but please go ahead. I think we all know who you're talking about.
Yeah. He was, he's a really bright guy. He was the intelligence chief of this outgoing government of Ghani, and he's well educated, and he has become the number two. And the Masood, who was leading the alliance earlier, his son is now taken over because Masood was assassinated by a trick. Right. Taliban got there. So in this context, we have to...
Days before 9/11, I should add. Days before 9/11.
Days before national level, that's right. And in fact, Masood had sent some representatives to India who met many of us who are members of parliament to see whether we could, help them out. But he was assassinated. Now his son has grown up and he is now taken charge, and he has been very categoric. He has said, no, I don't accept. Taliban is the legitimate government, and we need to. It's a pity that we don't have POK with us, because POK has a border with Afghanistan. At the moment, we don't have a border. Of course, Afghanistan, we have some pluses on it. One is, during Mahabharat, Shakuni also came from Afghanistan, and Gandhari also came from Kandahar. I mean, the queen of Hastinapur. She also came. She was princess. She came from there. So it has been part of India for a very long time, before we came to this century, this millennium. But Ranjit Singh went and conquered them, and there were many others who attacked Afghanistan and took it over, and was ruled by them for many years. So we are the only country which has been able to fight Afghanistanis and win. And Ranjit Singh is a example where it was, it's an outstanding victory. So therefore, and if you talk to the ordinary Afghanis, they love our music. They are people who want to come and get educated in India. In fact, most of the leaders of this last 20 years government were educated in India and got degrees in India. For instance, the previous president, he got a degree. He's their foreign affairs minister, Abdullah, I think his name was. He was also from India. So the India's connections in terms of their what shall I say, emotional connections with these people has been very strong. So if there's anybody who can save Afghanistan, it was India. So before I allow you to make an intervention and ask me further questions before we go to conclude, but the fact is this, that if there's anyone who will be welcomed by the people of Afghanistan, it's India. And if there's anyone logistically the best place after, amongst those who can befriend these people is India. The question is, India needs a nerve. And there's no doubt that if we send soldiers to Afghanistan, they will die. But they have died in Galwan. They have died in fighting in Ladakh, where they died in 1962. They died in 1965. It's a great pity. All we can do is to mitigate that by seeing that their families don't suffer, and their children and all, they get free education and they get enough stipend for their wife to and have a place to stay. If that is there, then all the soldiers themselves. I myself have talked to soldiers the time of Kargil. I said, do you feel upset that you might be fighting for a small amount of land and get killed? He said, no. If you look after your family, we are absolutely ready. Now here you put a lovely map of Afghanistan. This thin strip is actually, below it is POK. Yeah, so if POK was there, then we would have had a border with Afghanistan there.
Absolutely. Yes.
Which is called, I think, Wakhan
National Park area. Yes.
So this area is, and then that means all the whole of Afghanistan will be accessible through that. But we don't have POK, so therefore we don't have any direct connection. But still, I mean, if we have to go fly people there, it could be done. Moreover, if you look at the other countries, they are also friendly with India and also hostile to Pakistan. Tajikistan, then you have Kazakhstan, then you have Uzbekistan, yes. So all these stans are well disposed to India, and we have lots of engineers and so on working there. So I would say that the moment of truth has come for us. I mean, you can't just go on. I mean, it's very sad that China turned hostile and took over our territory, and this territory was mutually agreed as Indian territory for the time being. Namely, when 1993 we decided that till the dispute is settled, we will carve out areas which will be administered by these us two countries, namely India and China. So Aksai Chin went to China, and the others, the Ladakh part, came to India. And yet China crossed that line of control, which they have signed. It's a mutually agreed, I think, the LAC, and came and captured our territory. So we should have responded militarily. The only time we responded militarily, we got to give them a bashing, and that was in Galwan. And but since then, the Chinese have approached by the crouching method. So we have all these diplomats saying we will talk, we'll go to Russia and have a talk and so on. And then they say, okay, both of us will withdraw 220 kilometers each of each other. And then the moment we withdraw, within a short time, China just comes and fills the gap. And then we again shout and scream, again have another meeting, and again we agree to do, draw back another 20 kilometers. So I mean, this is the most incompetent handling of China I've ever seen in any part of the world. Probably as bad as what happened in 1962. But this is happening now. So we have to therefore get the attitude that, look, our land, we'll fight back. Even in Kashmir, because of so much pressure by the party, they decided to remove 370. But once it's there, no rules have been framed, nothing has been framed, and there's no elected government there, all kinds of problems. And now with the Taliban coming to POK, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, the Kashmir problem is going to be a terrible problem for you, because the people there already, those people who were in the political field earlier in Kashmir, our Kashmir, they are now become very bitter. They could easily start, intermingling with this Taliban, and I'm afraid we have got a major national security problem. Taliban coming is not only good for the militants in Afghanistan, but it's also equally important for India. It's been a very, very, very negative development for us, for which we have to now decide how to go about it. I don't think you want or you will get the Americans to get interested in Afghanistan again. But the Americans would like India to administer a defeat to a country like China, and perhaps they may become now more clear about Pakistan. Pakistan has made a complete fool of the United States. They have done small things like Osama bin Laden, telling where he is hiding, but at the same time, they have given complete sanctuary to Taliban. And so America was fighting Taliban in Afghanistan, and their principal ally in this region was playing host to Taliban. And that's why the Taliban suddenly, there was a surge. How? Because they were all living in Pakistan. They just crossed across and went. Even when, we were dealing with in this, when our Indian Airlines plane was hijacked, Taliban actually was brought in there by vehicles provided by Pakistan. And so I think we have to understand we are totally isolated in this area, but we are strong enough to fight them because the terrain is in our favor, particularly with China. The terrain is in our favor. Pakistan by itself is nothing, and we have shown that in the past. And therefore, we must prepare to liberate Afghanistan. That should be our policy. It may take 10 years, 15 years, whatever, but the planning must start. We must evict China from Ladakh. That will have a huge message for even Taliban that we could do this, because at this moment we have got a very, very bad image, because they're having occupied our territory. We are all the time suing them for peace and meetings, and this is something which has hurt our image in a very big way. So to begin with, I would like to make these points, and then after hearing you, Sri Guru, Sri Iyer, I would, you are a guru also, but anyway, I would like to then respond and continue the discussion further.
Sir, I have the map back up again, and I want to draw your attention to this small spot called Tora Bora. It is at the to the east, very close to Jalalabad, and it is where the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan is. Sir, in late 2001, the US, within a matter of weeks, was able to drive Taliban out of power in Kabul, and they had Osama bin Laden completely locked in caves in Tora Bora. Now, the story I'm hearing, and I just want you to tell the viewers what you thought happened. The story I'm hearing is, at that point, there were many warlords, like the ones that we have now, who told US, don't worry, you let us go in and catch that rascal and we'll bring him out to you. and US politely waited outside the doors or the outside the caves, and these guys escaped him, and he went and holed up for another 11 years. US couldn't get their hands on Osama
Yeah,
bin
that's
Laden.
right. That's
So,
right.
sir, how could the US be so naive? That's what I think when I come to know of this. The question that I asked was, look, this is the perpetrator of the 9/11. Why didn't you just finish him off? Why did you wait at the gates? So, how's your recollection of what happened at that time, sir?
No, you see, the thing is that uh, the Pakistanis were the first one to have a defense plan. I mean, defense agreement with the United States, the height of the U.S. Soviet Union Cold War. And that's 1952-53. And then Pakistan is very good in public relations. They cultivated the U.S. military. And the U.S. military supported the Pakistan people. The Pakistanis have a terrific lobby in the United States. I remember during my years, the Pakistanis were able to talk to 50 senators within half a day. I mean, just by picking up a phone, they would come to the coffee room or whatever in the Senate, and they would discuss. And I'm sure for their campaigns, they gave money. They were flushed with money. They were naturally, because there was no accountability. So the ISI and all these people did it. So in America, you live in America, you know that there's no such thing as one man deciding or a group of people with one view. It's in that sense, a democratic country, but as a consequence, lobbies can play havoc with decision making in the United States. Here is a thing which India was with the Soviet Union at that time, and there was where the Soviets were the principal enemy of the British, of the Americans, and consequently, the American public opinion, everybody was with the Pakistanis, and India, were seen to be people who are stooges of the Soviet Union. So this grew, and the Pakistanis then built, deep into the establishment, and particularly the military establishment, and that is how they manipulated. I think you have seen the end of that relationship now, because the shock they have got when they found that thousands and thousands of Taliban soldiers just crossed the Pakistani border and came to Afghanistan, and the speed with which they were able to come and occupy Kabul is literally unbelievable. And under what assurance did the Americans give up that air base, what called
Bagram. Yes,
Bagram?
Bagram.
This is the most modern military airport in the whole world. And the Americans just walked off, leaving everything there, including aircrafts.
Yes, yes.
On whose word? Now, they will not admit it today, but I'm telling you, it will come out in time that it was on the Pakistan assurance that the Taliban will not take this airport, and this airport could be continued to be used later on. So this time they have been jilted, and you know that when in a romance jilting takes place, it's deadly. So the Pakistan American romance is over, but you can't benefit that unless India is ready to fill the vacuum. The Americans are not going to come back to Afghanistan. And so if you want the Americans to feel secure, you have to play an active role now. So therefore, it is no use in today in talking in terms of Americans falling out with Pakistan, because the Americans just will stay off. They said, "I'll let them all go to hell." We have to take over this national alliance. We have to build them. We have to give them weaponry. We have to give them intelligence. We have to give them links to international issues. So I think we need an activist Indian government, not one which just goes on cocktail parties and gets carried away by praise, which our newspapers dutifully reproduce in the front page first headline. So we have to now think in seriously in terms of our security, in which we mean, as the American says, put your money where your mouth is. That is exactly what we have to do.
Absolutely, sir. And with your indulgence, I will put up the map again because I want to show where this resistance is coming from. And it is coming in the area called Panjshir Valley.
Wow.
And viewers, you can see I'm pointing my mouse right at this place, Panjshir Valley. And this is a narrow strip of land which is very difficult for, like tanks or others to navigate. Inside that, sir, I'm going to blow it up even more so that you can see it more clearly. So now you can see that that area is where the resistance is completely rooted. We are trying to use a mouse to circle it, and this is where both Saleh as well as Masood, they're all there. And now Taliban is sending some of their best fighters to try and stop them there, or perhaps go in and try to take control. There are 3 or 4 districts in that area that they are controlling. So the question is, even if assuming India does say that, okay, I want to play a role in this, we need to have some way to access this area. It is believed that they can stay there indefinitely. It is self-sufficient in terms of food production. It's a very fertile valley. It's very self-sufficient. So for the people there, they can hang tough. But the point now is, how does India get there? The only thing I can think of that is close by is Tajikistan. How are India's relationships with Tajikistan, sir?
Well, it's I mean, they are not by any means comfortable with the rise of Taliban. In that case, it will be. We have a presence there. We have lots of workers, a lot of engineers, and so on there. And Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, we have a pretty good relationship. So all these, these stans that are there, 4 or 5 of them, they'll all be supportive because they may not be supportive after we say defeat the Taliban, but they would be during the time we are fighting the Taliban, be very supportive. And through that, we can easily reach the Northern Alliance. In fact, the Northern Alliance leaders, they themselves can fly to any of these countries or travel to any of these countries. So that is there. And yes, you have correctly pointed out that these neighboring countries are required if we want to make serious, worthwhile contact with the Northern Alliance leaders.
And viewers, just wanted to let you know that Dr. Swamy is taking questions today in this session, but please only ask questions about Afghanistan and this topic. Keep the questions to this topic, and we will make sure that at least many of them are answered, because we are still about more than halfway through the discussion here, because there is a lot of interesting stuff still coming out, and I want you to stay tuned. Do like, share, and become a member of PGurus channel. It will help us give you quality programming. Dr. Swamy has given us a generous gift of his time by agreeing to come on this show. And to that end, we want to make sure that we present you, the viewer, with the maximum possible knowledge, gyan, that you can take by listening to somebody who has seen it all for over 50 years being in active politics. And Dr. Swamy, I have a next question, which is a little bit different. And I just want to pick your brains on this, sir. Sir, the fact that US brought Taliban to the negotiating table, this was made possible by Qatar. Qatar said, look, we will stand for making sure that Taliban will hold their end of the bargain. And that's how, this is during Trump's time, when the talks resumed with Taliban, so to say. And they started, they stopped, they started, they stopped. Finally, an agreement was reached. The problem that happened was the agreement was reached, but the way the troop withdrawal was going to be done was in a certain sequence, which was not followed under the Biden administration. The Biden administration just abruptly pulled its roots and then went. Now, my question to you, sir, is you know many people across the world, many of them perhaps were your student. What is Qatar doing today? There is not a single peep of information coming out of them, no statements. Why is the US not saying, look, Qatar guys, you have to make Taliban hold their end of the bargain? What is going on, sir? What can you rid this puzzle for us?
Qatar is no match for Taliban and make them do and say, uncle, by twisting their arm. No, no. See, look at this. I mean, look at the gullibility of the Americans. The Americans told many people on the back channel, and it reached me also, that the Taliban has promised that under no circumstances they will allow Al Qaeda to research. And the Americans said that's the one emotional thing for us Americans, that if Taliban promotes and gives safe haven to Al Qaeda, then the whole of the United States will revolt because of what happened in 9/11. And therefore, the Taliban gave that promotion. Hardly a few days have gone after August 15th, when the Taliban arrived in Kabul, that Al Qaeda has already started emerging. We may not be seeing it in the media just now, but I have information from our own people who are there, who have just come. They say, no, Al Qaeda has reared his head, they are building their offices, and so on. So if the Taliban can betray the United States of America, then what can Qatar do? You see, second is that the Americans said we may have to stay beyond August 30th. What is the Taliban said? Well, then we will have to attack you. You cannot stay beyond August 30th. Now imagine the language that Taliban is now speaking to the Americans, who literally, walked off the battlefield for them to occupy. So therefore, there's no country which can, which may have promised. What about Pakistan? Pakistan is the one that did all the chaperoning. And so will the Americans now turn against Pakistan? There's a big demand within the United States policymakers that now Pakistan should be taught a lesson. There's only one way. Let the Indians reoccupy POK and help us, whatever internationally has to be done, whatever veto has to be applied in the UN Security Council. But otherwise, the only hope the United States has is that India becomes an aggressive country. And that is not something we can take for granted, because the present mindset of our leadership in India is that all this masterstroke thing. For some time, they were trying to make that Modi and Taliban have come to an understanding till the Taliban tick them off. And we are a country which is opposed to Pakistan, and therefore the Taliban cannot be friendly with you. So the short answer to your question is, there's no point in doing anything to Qatar, because the Qatar had its limits. It played host, and we gave you all the facilities for meetings. But other than that, what Qatar can do? And to Americans to expect that they can be held accountable, that would be immature on their part.
And so the next question is, with foreign funds frozen, how will the Taliban run the country? Would it be courtesy Uncle Xi Jinping?
Yeah, he has already announced that we are going to give finances to Afghanistan. And you must know that just before, I think 4 days before Kabul went to Taliban, there was a high-powered delegation.
Number two.
Of the man who is number 2 in Beijing. And the way they wined and dined them. So, therefore, The more you shut off their finances, the more the Chinese will give you. And what is it? Chinese giving cash doesn't mean they're giving the dollars. They'll give them in kind.
Correct, correct,
They'll
correct.
give you food. They'll give you this. They'll give you that. They'll give you weapons. They'll give you, of course, they don't have to give aeroplanes because the Americans left all the planes there for them to take. But the Chinese may exchange it with their planes because the Chinese want to study the aeronautics of the American planes. So I would say that Taliban has absolutely no problem. Pakistan will be shown its place. They will not be able to deliver anything. And two, given that all the thinking people have all fled Afghanistan, the only way that now we can restore the position is, as I go back, that national and Northern Alliance. We have to find a way to support them and slowly get into confrontation with Taliban and defeat them, for which we can play a role.
Just an interesting thing there, Dr. Swamy. The National Alliance was a term coined by the Pakistanis. So the alliance themselves like to call up themselves as United Alliance.
Yes, United Alliance.
This will take root in a few weeks. So
I agree. No, I know about that. And the Pakistanis wanted to say there's some corner, something is happening.
Right,
so that's why they call it the Northern Alliance. Right. I know that the people like Masood and all resent it, but the fact is that's because it's so much in currency. I've used it in this thing. Otherwise, I would have also liked to say National Alliance or United Alliance, whichever they prefer. And the fact is that they have people, but in the northern part, they are more secure because the geography is such that they are masters of it, and Taliban can never be able to navigate that area with ease. They'll just get killed in the process, located and killed by the Masood people.
Sir, the next question is a little bit interesting, but it is right up your alley because you have a lot of experience in this. I just want to run by you what happened a few days ago. The Taliban ransacked India's consulates in a couple of cities and took away documents, evidently, and also the parked cars because they were bulletproof. Now, I have a question for you, sir. They say that all Indians have evacuated these consulates. It was only the local people who were manning the place. Should this be construed by India as an attack on its premises? Because we have to keep in mind every consulate belongs to the country whose consulate is in that place. What are your thoughts, sir?
It doesn't matter what India portrays it as. The question is, what is your retaliatory power? In dealing with the barbarians like the Taliban, the only language they understand is retaliation. And if you are not able to, you ran away from your embassies, you couldn't even take your secret papers. I believe even in Kabul they have raided your embassy and taken away all the documents. And those documents may not stay with the Taliban. It will go to Pakistan because Pakistan is the one that's most interested in that. So don't expect. If India's mindset changes that we are going to support the
United Alliance,
Masood, the United Alliance. Let's from this program onwards, from this stage onwards, start only referring to as the United Alliance. This United Alliance, if we support them, that will be a major statement of value. And then if you follow it up with substantial support on the ground, I think then we are a player in the matter. And then maybe the Americans also would agree to support you. So would the Japanese. So would the Australians. These countries which are part of Quad. But If you don't do, your position is already terrible. You know that the Americans formed a quad for Afghanistan. India is not in it. Pakistan is in it. China is in it. Then the Russians formed a body. Again, India is not in it. So all the anti-American people were saying, "Oh, Americans are like this and all." Now, what are they going to say? They are all Russian people. These anti-American people are mostly people who have been brought up by the Soviet Union and now hanging on to Russia. So I'm saying that today India's reaction has no value unless there is some way you show your intention to alter the situation. And I said, and I'm going to repeat again, that the only way you can show the world, show Taliban that you mean business, you're taking it very thing, is to support Masood's son, and this Amrullah
Saleh, yeah.
Salah. Saleh or Salah. We don't mind him being called Salah either. That means he's a relative.
Yes. So the next question is also very interesting, sir. You mentioned about the number 2 of Taliban being given a very good reception in China. And you can construe that as an indirect way that China has recognized Taliban. Whether they officially come out and say this or not, we have to assume that. We also know that Russia, being a subservient country to China, will probably do suit. Now, today's news is Iran has started allowing oil to flow into Afghanistan. So essentially, Iran, which is a Shia country, is now saying that, okay, we will allow you to get the oil, the crude. And it is expected that the United Arab Emirates may follow soon. Because see, what is happening is all these countries, one by one, like a domino, they're all saying, okay, yeah, these guys are there, but we have our business interests, let's, whatever it is, hold your nose and do it, whatever it is, sir. My question to you, sir, is if India recognizes Taliban and then Taliban sends one of the people who was involved in planning the 1999 hijacking as the ambassador, what kind of a slap that would be to India?
India, if it recognizes Taliban government, then forget about India playing any role at all. We will be hated by everybody. After all, you must remember, although we didn't send troops to Afghanistan, we gave them libraries, we built their parliament, we gave them hospitals, we gave them so many other things. And now to turn around and the very people who destroyed all that, you're going to recognize them, that'll be terrible. I would say that, in what way is you can, there's no way you can appeal to Taliban, because the more conciliatory you sound, the more they will insult you. I don't think that at any stage they have acknowledged that India did anything for Afghanistan's people in terms of hospitals and libraries and so on and so forth. They haven't done that at all. And they will not do it because of Pakistan. They in the long run, they may even subvert Pakistan and make it into a Talibanized country. But as of now, they are people who make sure that they are on the good side of Pakistan, and they will do it according to Pakistan. China has been very careful, because there is always this question that tomorrow Taliban becomes very strong, very entrenched. Will they not raise up the Xinjiang matter? So that is something which troubles them. Second, according to, I have no sources now to tell me what they really think in China, but I have talked to American scholars. They think that the Chinese do feel that it's only a matter of time before Taliban starts talking about what's happening in Xinjiang, and that would be a matter of great disturbance for them. So we are dealing essentially with Islamic extremism and not an axis of evil, so to speak. Now, you talked about Iran. I have been to Iran at the heyday of my friendship with Israel. And when they invited me to visit Iran, and I went to Tehran, I had many programs, including addresses at the university, meeting their top leaders. But I did ask them that I'm such a good friend of Israel, how is it that you invited me? They said, well, you're dealing with this on a bilateral. You deal with us, because I had said some good things about Iran earlier. They said, you have dealt with us and the Israelis as bilateral matters, and you have not allowed it to be interfered. So that's why we're doing it. The reason I'm telling you is that when the Americans put sanctions on Iran recently, what did they do? They told us, you want to be friends with us? Stop buying oil from Iran, which is much cheaper. And we stopped buying.
And we could pay for it in rupees.
Yeah, absolutely. On top of that, when we are having Chabahar, we are supposed to be building a port for them, which they said after that you can have, first preference in all your, your freight movements. All that you have given up just because the Americans told you, we will take it amiss if you continue to trade oil. I mean, you unilaterally, the Americans unilaterally decide to put sanctions on Iran. And then they say, listen, you want to be our friends, then stop buying oil. And it was, we were now buying oil at 3-4 times more as expensive as we were paying for Iran, with much higher transportation cost. What do you call this? See? It didn't come in the newspapers. I don't know whether you have seen it in news. I have not seen it. It's such a big thing, you see. And we are paying so much for oil now. And so don't expect countries to respect you if you don't stand with them in difficult times. That goes with human beings also. You can make only good friends if you stand up with a friend who is in difficult times. But at that time, because some guys give you a dirty stare, you chicken and go and do exactly what they want to do, nobody will have respect for you.
Sir, my understanding is, having been on the other side of this equation, being from US, is that the United States told India, if you stop buying from Iran, we will supply you crude from our reserves, strategic reserves, and we will also store it for you so that you can draw down as and when you want, and we are going to give it to you free. I don't know, sir. These are the terms of the agreement that somebody told me. I'm not 100% sure. I would expect somebody from the government to give this clarification, because whatever it is the truth, it's okay. Go ahead and come and say it out. Because what one problem is, see, this price at the pump of petrol and diesel is a big problem. Why isn't the government trying to be transparent and say that, okay, we have to stop here on this day abruptly. This is how this was, replaced by this supply from these people. This is how it is coming in. So much is the net outflow of foreign exchange for buying crude, because now we are not buying in rupees, we are buying it in dollars. These are all data that is easy to share, that everybody will understand, and they may even support you, saying it's okay, you can put 110 rupees as long as you can tell us 10 rupees goes towards building arms or roads towards the border. I don't know what it is, but what I'm trying to say, sir, is these things, the government can be transparent. I don't know why they don't want to do that. Sir, I will leave it at that. I have a last question.
Let me add to what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
You want to be with the Americans in Quad, but you are not agreeing to the Americans asking you to cancel the S-400 contract. Why? Why are the Americans asking? They're saying that the S-400 is produced by the Russians with Chinese electronics. And if you get S-400, you will have to get Chinese engineers to come and service the thing because you are not yet equipped for that. And we don't know what the Chinese would put into that electronics. You can already see the Chinese are giving you a warning when they shut down your electricity in Bombay and said, we can do this to you too. I mean, they owned up that Bombay thing.
Yes, yes.
So your mind is not clear. Everybody knows that Russia is a junior partner of China. Everybody knows that the Americans now are thirsting for some kind of retribution for the Chinese. I mean, they may be sophisticated in their dealing with China, but the fact is that is the bottom line with them. You want to be part of Quad. What's the difficulty in cancelling S-400? And the Americans will give you, and American said, we'll give you much better things. You know, after all, it's just a matter of fitting some rockets onto your aeroplane. That is what S-400 is all about. So, how is these decisions made? We want to show that we are friends with everybody. And therefore, a natural candidate for Nobel Peace Prize. I don't think their vision is more than that.
I was going to say that, this will not guarantee you Nobel Prize, but you already plucked the words out of my mouth. Dr. Swamy, last question.
Yes.
One of the members of parliament who opposed the CAA tooth and nail after it was passed and, made a lot of noise, now has turned around and said, no, CAA is needed. The CAA must be, the cutoff date must be extended from December 31st, 2014 to sometime in 2021. So these are the people, I'm telling you, these are the people who took to the streets and made a ruckus in the parliament when the CAA bill was passed. And now this person is asking, extend the CAA to 2021. Your thoughts, sir? This is my last question.
Why don't you name him?
Oh, I can. Why? I don't want to give credit uselessly for people who, why should I give that person a credit, sir? I mean,
what credit, Yogo? If a man has done a somersault, there's no credit.
Okay, so since you asked, his name is Mahendra Singh Sirsa.
Oh, okay. Well, see, the question is, I don't think it does matter if any member of parliament is opposed to CAA because it was passed by parliament. And I spoke on that issue. I know it very well. And it's all that is said against it is all rubbish. There is nothing against Muslims in that at all. I, in fact, had one Under Secretary General, that is the number 2 man in the United Nations, who held a press conference to say that I had targeted the Muslims by making this statement. I was flattered that he took my name and held a press conference for that. But I filed a defamation case against him. And you'll be surprised how many countries supported me. In the end, that guy got fired. He is no more in that job of Undersecretary. He's gone back to his Senegal. So I would say, why are you worried about what people say? You have not done anything wrong. You have not kept any Muslims out. There's no Muslim who is coming on religious persecution asking for your citizenship. If it was for Tariq Fateh, we will give him citizenship. He wanted it Canadian citizenship, and that's where he's gone. And then there was Taslima. She wanted to go to Switzerland as a citizen. And so otherwise she stayed as long as she wanted in India. Any Muslim is ready to come to India and say, I've been religiously persecuted by these extremist jihadi type who are not representative of the Muslim community, but they are targeting me. We'll be the first ones to, there will be no hesitation in giving him citizenship. But the propaganda goes on. This is against Muslims. This is against Muslims. And if such a MP does a somersault, it's not worth even taking notice of him.
But the broader question, should you think that the CAA date should be extended?
First, let's implement what we have promised. Even today, we have not yet given the citizenship papers to these people who came, because this was a commitment made during the Mahatma Gandhi's time, and we've been extending, and we are the first government which has done it. But it must be executed. It's not been executed because people in Kashmir, the leaders of Kashmir, protested against it. So we were thinking that somehow we can bring them around in conciliatory talks. That has not happened. Now, first do this. Then you have another CAA, because this CAA will require, you just can't buy a fatwa. Yeah, from the Home Ministry, you can't extend it. You have to go back to Parliament and get an amendment passed. But instead of that, it's better to bring a new bill.
Wonderful, sir. And now let us start taking a few questions from our viewers.
Yeah.
Can you put the questions, please? The first one is from Apurva Raj. How can we counter the future attacks by the evil triad of Taliban, Pakistan, and China?
Well, if supposing such an attack takes place, declare Baluchistan as an independent country. They are already,
Recognize them. Yeah.
Yeah, recognize them. Declare it. We have Baluchis in India. Set up a emigre government, and get some other countries also to do so. And so any time such an attack takes place. By the way, we got a pretty good radar system. We have got lots of good aircrafts. And if such an attack takes place, then you can have the armory of the United States available to you. Because if China is involved, the Americans would definitely be very supportive. And the Americans are all on give and take basis. There is no emotion in it. So just because we misbehaved with them somewhere else, they will not take it out on us in another situation where their interests are involved. So I don't think we should worry about future attacks by them. The question is, we don't want terror. We don't want infiltration. Those are the things that will be disturbing us by these three.
Next question, please. Jack Oldman wants to know, Swamy sir, do you think that it was a huge mistake by us by not putting boots on the ground? Why have we been so shy of taking decisive stances on the geopolitical chessboard?
I 100% agree with him. It's a cowardly of us not to do it. We would have been welcomed, unlike American soldiers, would have been welcomed by the local people. And we would have, and we have, we are the only country which has conquered Afghanistan in the past. It was Maharaja Ranjit Singh. You know that. Other than that, the British couldn't do it, the Italians couldn't do it, the Russians couldn't do it, the Americans couldn't do it. But we can, and because there is a basic thing, and we have educated so many of their people in our universities, there's a lot of bonding. We should have sent 20,000 troops
So
when the Americans asked for it. Huh?
Yeah, speaking of that, I think about 17 to 18% of the population in Afghanistan are essentially Rajput Marathas. In fact, many of them carry that name in their last name. You mentioned this, sir, and so there is a
same thing in Baluchistan also. Most of them have Maharashtrian names.
So then we don't understand all these bonds. These are all bonds forever. I mean, they don't go away.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we are much better behaved with people local. I mean, Americans, you see, there's so much cultural differences there. They're not able to. And our music, by the way, it charms the Afghanis in no end.
And let's take the next question, please. Anil Sharma wants to know, why does government keep terrorists alive in jail forever and then fall in postage release trap?
Well, I mean, we have hanged some people. Kasab was hanged. And before that, somebody, I remember in 1983, we hanged one terrorist. And well, if we go by the law, you see, and maybe the framing of the law, which passes Parliament, may give so many opportunities because it's based still on the principle that you are presumed to be innocent unless proved guilty. And therefore, the courts do exercise. It takes time. The people, lawyers are there. There's a lot of money that goes into their pockets, and so the adjournment is a very profitable thing. So that's the reason. But I think doing it by any quicker process, once you got them in jail and in chains, I don't think you have to necessarily thirst for an early hanging of them or early loss of life for them.
By the way, the name of the person who is heading the current Afghan government in exile inside the Panjshir Wali, Amrullah Saleh, Amrullahh, Saleh. So
Yeah, I said Amrullah, Salah. I thought Salah, but you're saying Saleh.
So sometimes what happens, the pronunciation could be Salah, but the spelling is Saleh. So
E is there instead of A, is it?
Yeah, it's
EH.
E.
EH. That is a very common name I've seen. Yes, then it's Saleh.
And Abhilash Nanda wants to know, Pranam to Swamiji and Iyerji, if we support the United Alliance, aren't we looking at increase in insurgency?
As if they are going to wait for that to increase their insurgency. All those terrorists are thirsting to come to India who are sitting in POK. And so the moment the Taliban settles down, you will find tripling, quadrupling of terrorist attacks in India.
Abhilash, I don't know how old you are, but this is exactly what happened in 1989. That's how the 1990 the Kashmiri Hindus got driven out of the valley. This was exactly what happened. So please don't even think that it is not going to happen. So Harsh Priyadarshi wants to know, but Taliban considers Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as part of Greater Afghanistan. Don't you think it's an opportunity to use Taliban to break Pakistan into pieces?
Well, I mean, if they break Pakistan into pieces, then they would take it over. So Taliban only gets bigger. I mean, the question is, Pakistan, we don't want to, we can break Pakistan into pieces without Taliban's help. For instance, Baluchistan, Pakhtunistan, as well as Sindh, they will separate anytime you give a promise to recognize them. So therefore, why wait for Taliban? Why should we rely on Taliban? How do we know they will do it? How do you know they will not change their mind? I mean, why should we be dependent on someone else to do your work?
Next question, please. Vipin Kumar wants to know, sir, if one was to make sense of American haphazard withdrawal, what would be the justification of such a mess?
I don't think American withdrawal was haphazard. It was cold-blooded thought that the Taliban will cooperate fully. There was a cold-blooded analysis that they will be able to lift them all up before the Taliban turns up. But the Taliban turned up on 15th of August and upset everything and took over the policing. So that's where the error took place. I think probably the only mistake the Americans made is thinking that the Taliban believes in contracts. Taliban has no civilizational norms that it practices. If you are foolish enough to sign an agreement with them, then you deserve the punishment you get.
Somebody has an interesting question. I think you already answered it partly. Is it true that India has lost the narrative on Afghanistan due to EAM Jaishankar flying to Doha under Bapu 2.0? That is PM Modi. He's calling PM Modi as Bapu 2.0.
No, I mean, it was not only that, it was silly for him to wait around in the outer room for them to come and see, allow him to come and meet people. He was not there in the meeting. He was kept out. He was also earlier, when he went to America, the Secretary of State made him wait 5 days. He had an appointment with the Secretary. And on the very first day, he got a message that the Secretary has to go to Europe, so he can't meet you. But if he's willing to wait 5 days, he'll be returning back and then he'll meet him. And he waited 5 days. What do you think will be the impression created in that this guy has no other work except to hang around.
Next question from Vedam Anand Kumar. Dr. Swamy, you had written an article about the Taliban issue that resulted in your arbitrary removal from Harvard. Whatever you said is today a reality. Does this begin the clash of civilizations?
Well, first of all, what was done in Harvard was a very clandestine thing. The procedure for being invited to teach at Harvard is that the Department of Economics recommends your name to the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, and then it is taken for granted that what they recommend is final. So for years, 1 year after another year after, for 10 continuous years, Department of Economics wrote to the dean that we want Swamy to teach, because he teaches two courses for which we need two professors normally. One is a course on China, the other is on mathematical economics. It's very rare to get somebody who can teach both. And since I had been in the past also teaching at Harvard. But on that particular 11th year, what happened is that the people in the religion school who are supposed to be experts on India, they went to a meeting of what is called as the catalog committee, where all that is decided is what kind of a front page there'll be for the catalog and what will be the sequencing of. Now, nobody goes to that meeting because this is a clerk's work. So, but these people came in strength with with the Indian Amartya Sen and Bose, Sugato Bose or whatever his name was. All these characters turned up, plus these India experts, Diana Ek and so on. They turned up. Maybe they were inspired by Sonia Gandhi here, I don't know. And they just said that I have made I wrote a book in which I have said that the Muslims have the same DNA as Indians, as Hindus, and therefore they should accept it if they want to be treated as people who really belong to our country. Now, that's an opinion I gave. I didn't say that they should be killed. And on that basis, without even asking me, which is a fundamental democratic principle, that if you're going to accuse somebody of something and take action against him, then you will give him an opportunity to present his point of view. Without asking me, with the bare quorum, because nobody goes to that meeting, and I was given a notice, nobody was given a notice that this is going to be on the agenda. They passed a resolution saying that my courses will be deleted. I was not removed. I could come back the next year, which they tried to tell me and tried to appease me. I said, no, I don't want to come again. So that is the quality to which they adapt. Now you see they are holding some conference of some 8-9 universities on why Hindutva is Nazi propaganda. I mean, these are, what are they, mad? What has Hindutva got to do with Nazis? So I don't worry about it. I think they have done me a favor, because every year I used to say I'm not coming, and I used to be persuaded to come. That meant 4 months spending in America a year. And then, a politician being away for 4 months, and by then 2G had happened and all this, and my demand for me to be in India was very strong. So they did me a favor instead of my saying no. They made it easy for me.
Yes, and the name of the conference is Dismantling Global Hindutva. And they claim, again, see, this is where the problem is. They have a problem now. They claim 45 universities were sponsoring, but once the universities were contacted, they realized that this was done without their permission. Stanford has pulled out. UC system, many UCs have pulled out. Many more are coming out. So there is a...
But Harvard is not pulled out.
Not yet. But again, it's working through its ranks. Tomorrow, we will be airing an interview with Nikunj Trivedi and Rajiv Malhotra on this very topic. So please stay tuned in with PGurus, and we will be able to tell you what is the latest on this. A lot of stuff happening there also. So Dr. Swamy, the next question from Abhilash Jayachandra. Does Taliban look at the Indian Deoband school of Islam as their parent ideology?
Well, the Deoband school is a highly intellectual school. I mean, you may not like what they're saying and doing, but they are intellectual. They are scholars there and so on. So it's inevitable that they would have some influence. But the fact of the matter is that they, the Taliban is a savage institution, and for them to have master servant or guru shishya relationship with anybody is not imaginable. At least I don't think that is ever going to happen.
Next question, please. Preetham Sarvavidya. I'm sorry. Preetham Sarvavidya wants to know. During 1996, India had secretly given military medical assistance to Ahmad Shah Massoud and his forces. Can Modi government follow the same step of providing assistance without acknowledging it publicly?
I think they could do much more than that. They can give them weapons. They can give them drones, helicopters. A lot of things they can give. Why only medicines? I mean, we must get out of this medicines and libraries and so on. We are a world power potentially, and we must exercise that power to show that we are a functioning world power.
Jayaprakash Iyer. Sir, at any time, if you feel like you want to stop, please let me know, because the questions are quite a few. And we will keep going as long as you are ready, sir.
9:30.
9:30.
Another 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Sounds good, sir. Jayaprakash Iyer wants to know, are we pushed to a likely alliance of necessity between Christian nations, Buddhist nations, and India against jihadi congregations?
Well, there was a professor at Harvard called, I knew him very well, who wrote a book called Clash of Civilizations.
Samuel Huntington.
Huntington, yeah. In which he said that there will be, and he said this in 1994, that there will be a world war. It will be Islam versus a unity of Hindus and Christians. I don't know whether that's realistic scenario, but there's no doubt that if the Islam is taken over by these hardliners, they will have to wage war, and that too with the kafirs, which includes us and the Christians. So I think, what I would say is that this question that has been posed should be turned into a contingency planning, that such things can happen, and how do we be prepared for it so that we are not surprised when this happens. So from that point of view, it's a very valuable question, and I think we must prepare for a possibility of this happening, although the probability I don't think is much.
Subhajit Chatterjee wants to know, how could the Pakistanis make such a fool of USA?
Well, I mean, you see, I think the Americans are easily susceptible to flattery. I don't know whether you will agree. They like praise. They like gratitude, deep expression of gratitude. And Pakistanis are great ones at that. And the Pakistanis have been smart enough to do, at crucial moments, something which wins their hearts, like pointing out where Osama bin Laden is hiding. Even though the earlier time, when they had surrounded him, the Pakistanis said that we'll go and catch him and bring him out. Instead of that, they gave him the back door and sent him away. So I think the Pakistanis, I have myself dealt with a lot of Pakistanis, both at Harvard when they were students of mine. And when Musharraf was there, I made a visit. And when the Russians came into Afghanistan, the then dictator, Sir Ziaul Haq, invited me to visit Peshawar. So I went to Peshawar and saw the Afghan refugees and so on. I know that when they want to please you, they'll pour the praise and hospitality and so on, but they mean none of it. And so the Americans, everywhere they get abused and called Yanks and so on. Then Egypt, they're kicked and so on. So therefore, when Pakistanis lay tons and tons of butter on them, they are bound to be influenced. I mean, I don't think that it's you have to be really hard boiled or a neighbor of Pakistan to know the reality of Pakistan.
Next question, please. Aditya TP. Dear doctor, why are we so slow in implementing reforms in labor judiciary systems? Is it time to rethink what works and what does not work in the constitution?
Yes, that's always necessary. How can, and for instance, in America, one of the ways that they lower the load on courts is by having discovery and interrogatories. I don't know whether our Sree Iyer knows about it. He's disappeared. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just answering a question and
Okay.
trying to see how many more questions are left. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, I'm saying that I don't know whether you know about discovery. Of course, you have just won a defamation case, but that's was it a civil case or a criminal case?
It was a civil case, sir.
Oh, civil case. Then I'm no surprised because we had threatened them with discovery and they would have been dead as a dodo after discovery and interrogatories. So, but in America, you can't go to trial unless you have done discovery and interrogatories.
Yes.
In India, there is no such requirement. And our lawyers don't like it because it's a lot of work. You have to frame questions, you have to put it across in an affidavit and so on. So, and then they will give you a big bunch of answers, then you have to read it. And so, therefore, there are methods by which, for example, on adjournments, don't agree to adjournments unless both sides agree. Both sides want adjournments and say that I will not, out of 10 hearings, only one hearing I'll allow an adjournment. And everything else. Then you have day-to-day hearings also. There are many ways to do it if there's a will to do it.
At this point, I want to just put a clarification out there. The person's name I said, Mahendra Singh Sirsa, he belongs to Akali Dal party. He personally may have not objected, but I think his party opposed CAA, which is what I wanted to say. But the main question there was whether the CAA was going to be framed, and you have answered that, sir. So personally, to me, the biggest sight, heartbreaking, was the sight of 3 Sikh pujaris holding the text on their head, the sacred Granth, and posing in front of Kabul airport, because 100% they are not going back. Whichever Sikh is going to be back in the India, they will not go back. But you see, the problem here is Indians always say, "Beta, tu aja idhar, tu aja idhar." See, this is the thing that we seems to be doing, and I'm afraid the way India is going, that in a great act of benevolence, Prime Minister Modi might say, "Let us form a 200-kilometer corridor for all the Afghans trapped in Afghanistan to just drive across to India. We'll take care of them." That is not the response at this time. That's my personal opinion, sir. I don't know what you think.
Well, if somebody is frightened and he's an Indian, wants to come back to India, our doors are open. We are not in a position to accept others who have no bonds, earlier bonds with India. So I don't think there's a highway and all this. If he does that, I think Modi will have a hell of a time. I don't think he would do it. But I do think that if Indians want to come back, considering that most Indians have given their savings and sent them back, and we have a huge contribution to our foreign exchange by NRIs. So therefore, I think we owe them this much, that if they want to come back, they can come back.
Thank you very much, sir. And with that, our program comes to an end. Dr. Swamy, I think I told you 30 minutes. I took much more than that. I apologize. But the topic was so interesting, I just couldn't let go, sir. My apologies again, but I think the gain is all of ours and the viewers. Thank you very much, Dr. Swamy. And we hope to come back and talk to Dr. Swamy on many such interesting topics. Please like and subscribe our channel and support us. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Yeah. Bye.